Hey everybody, I'd like to welcome you back to Bleeding Cool's weekly recap of Syfy's Happy, their series adaptation of Grant Morrison and Derek Robertson's graphic novel series. My name is Ray Flook, I am a television beat writer. I'd like to thank you guys for joining me either for the first time or once again. If you are joining for the first time and want to get caught up, make sure you check out bleedingcool.com and also some of the things we have listed down below. You can get caught up on our live blogs and our recaps from the past, let's see, what was it, 3 weeks? Yep, 3 weeks. But this week we're going to be looking at episode 4, Year of the Horse. And I'll be using my notes to make sure that we are guiding our way along. But for those of you who remember, episode 3 left off on a pretty ominous note. That essentially Very Bad Santa had beaten the crap out of Sax and really not only could see Happy, but could get his hands on Happy. And we don't start off any better in this episode, because what we do get is we get a continuation of that scene, and Very Bad Santa can do more than just talk to and grab and hold Happy. He, as we see here in the most disgusting manner possible, can eat him. He swallows Happy whole and then proceeds to grab a very large pipe and wants to essentially finish off Sax once and for all. But Happy, as pleasant and as nice as he is, he's developed a little bit of game hanging out with Sax for a while. So he decides to use the whole, okay, you want to swallow me, I can always find my way back up. So he forces Very Bad Santa to not only throw him up, but essentially all of the other contents in his stomach. And that just weakens Very Bad Santa. He's just not in a place to finish off Sax, so he has to wander away. So thankfully, Sax is still alive because of Happy, which means, again, got a lot of, you owe him, Sax, you owe him. What's even more important is that there is a clue in everything that has been thrown up and everything else. We get a clue in the form of a fortune and a fortune cookie. So we are now, our heroes are off and on their way to track the fortune cookie, to track the location, to be able to track Very Bad Santa. So that's where we're at. And then we go on and we get to see what's going on in the dysfunctional lives of the Scaramucci family. In this case, we get to meet Isabella Scaramucci, who is apparently a reality queen star. Secrets of Sussex is the name of the fine reality show. And she brings a camera crew with her everywhere. And we can tell that between Isabella and Mr. Blue that there is a lot of building up long-term animosity. And that animosity isn't going to be getting any better because, as we know, Blue was the one who put the hit out on the 4 boys. And we know how in the first episode that went, or maybe we know how that went. They go to the morgue. She's there to identify her boys, and it's interesting because you see the change in dynamic. And I give Debbie Mazur a lot of credit for this. She does an incredible dynamic in her face and her expression of moving from a woman who's there to go through the roles of reality television to a woman who's come to the realization, oh my God, this happened. What happened to them? And you see it just play out wonderfully well in that scene. A lot of credit for her. I've actually, just in that scene alone, I'm very excited to see where they go with Isabella this season. Okay, we're going to cut back now. We've got Amanda and we've got McCarthy, who are still on the case. What we find interesting is that they go to visit the parents of another child who is missing, and they have not received the note yet. And in the middle of their talking to the parents, McCarthy gets a message from Smoothie. Smoothie, who is reminding her once and for all, hey, just in case you were wondering, I'm with your mom, we're doing facials, we're having a little girls' night, but just so you know, in any given moment, I'm going to find like 90 different ways to kill your mom. So that's just kind of how Smoothie operates. And on a side note, even though we don't necessarily get a lot from him this week, Patrick Fischler's Smoothie, just in the parts we get, he's just fantastic. The moment we see the Book of Mormon, I'll be reading the quote later on when we go over top 10 quotes, but when we see the Book of Mormon guy show up and talking about the kingdom of God on heaven and the look of satisfaction on Smoothie's face, yeah, you could tell this was just a man who's going to treat himself to a little bit of just, for lack of a better phrase, me time. But I think we're going to find out very soon that that's a very, very disturbing thing. That's a little more than just going to get mimosas and a facial. So we're at that point. We now cut back to Sax at the fortune cookie factory. Sax, in his typical manner, meets with the representative from the fortune cookie factory, and as has been established in the very beginning, there's clearly a lot more going on in this show than we realize. Because the fortune cookie factory representative, she also believes in the whole idea that the fortune cookies are meant to find the right person, and there's divine intervention, and there's a master plan, and all of this stuff that Sax really doesn't really care about, and lo and behold, finds all the ways possible in the world to insult her, and yet somehow is able to walk out with the information. That information is taken him to a restaurant. That restaurant is going to take him to Chinatown, and as we go out in the quotes later on, Nick Sachs doesn't exactly have the greatest reputation in Chinatown, as we will see later on top of the fact that he has a huge price on his head. So yeah, a very, very, very rough combination for our heroes. Cut back to Blue and Isabella. It's interesting. We are now seeing at the family home, we're seeing how the family dynamic lays out. And Isabella is making it not too unclear to Mr. Blue. She wants to know not so much who killed her boys, but who was the one in the power and the position to order the hit. With that name and with their lineage, who would have been the one to order a hit to take those boys out? And there's a deep implication of who she's specifically blaming for this. Blue, I got to give a lot of credit. Blue doesn't bat an eye and essentially says, you're the reason why your boys died because you essentially pissed off God with your reality television and all this stuff. So, of course, God smited your boys down. As he's eating, doesn't miss a beat, just kind of chugs along the entire time. So he's Mr. Cool, Mr. Blue, he's Mr. Smooth, until someone needs to talk to him. And then we see Blue go from confident to scared. And we see the vehicle come to pick him up, and he gets taken to, yes, wait for it, because there's no other way I can think of to phrase it. It just reminded me of a large dung beetle. Now, I'm going to assume, as we see later on the scene, that the dung beetle is a costume, and it's part of some big type of insect variation of furry. If there is, I'm going to... Look, it's 2017. I'm assuming there's variations of everything. So, yeah, I just figure that's kind of how it rolls. So, but the dung beetle is essentially the big boss to Mr. Blue. Because Mr. Blue, you can tell by how nervous and essing his pants he looks as he's talking to him. But there's a couple things that came up during the scene. Besides the fact that we know the dung beetle is his boss, the dung beetle is also involved with Mr. Blue and the coordination of the children that Very Bad Santa has been picking up. They've been using Very Bad Santa as a tool to collect the kids, and now apparently there is some delivery that needs to take place. These kids are being taken somewhere. The dung beetle also makes reference to a particular kid, but we're not sure what that's about yet, but I think we may get a better idea as the episode rolls along. The other thing, too, again, and I find it pretty ballsy for the part of what I'm assuming is a individual wearing a large dung beetle costume. Yeah, I wouldn't really call out Very Bad Santa's costume as being campy. I'm just saying, and your party-goer friends, it looked a little odd, too. Just going to put that out there. I don't like to judge or anything like that. But let's cut back to McCarthy and Amanda. McCarthy and Amanda, as they were leaving the parents' house, they happened to see that there was a delivery guy who just happened to be showing up to deliver an envelope to that mailbox of the parents who are missing the kid. So lo and behold, guess what? Let's see if we can find out where this thing came from. So what ends up happening is McCarthy and Amanda end up getting a hold of the delivery guy, who, and after some very interesting threatening and torture, because guy wants to play piano, so what do you think is the first thing you're obviously going to go after? But he makes them aware of, like, no, it's a dead drop. He just shows up to a location. There's an envelope that's available for him to deliver with the address. He doesn't know who it comes from or anything like that. Now, granted, he could have made this a lot easier on himself by saying that earlier, so I was kind of a little bit like, I'm not buying into what secrecy are you really holding here? So I kind of didn't really buy so much into that. But we do have Amanda and we do have McCarthy who are on the case, and they're moving forward. So we have our heroes in these factions that are kind of like making their way to some central point. And I say that because now we cut back to Sachs and to Happy, who are going to the Chinese food restaurant in Chinatown to meet with the delivery guy. The delivery guy who's also a pot dealer, which for Sachs actually works out pretty damn well. For the sake of getting information from the guy, weed isn't always the nicest thing when it comes to like long-term and short-term memory. But he offers that he can be able to take them to where they need to go. So they step outside, and next thing you know, there's a fortune about duck, and someone yells duck, and next thing you know, the delivery guy's dead. Yeah, the delivery guy's dead. And now you have essentially what looks like a cross between Hobo with a Shotgun and Big Trouble in Little China. Because Sachs now has to face down with the Triads. Yep, Triads. The Triads, another gang that's essentially looking to take out Sachs, along with, it seems like, every other gang in the city. So in what could best be described as, I wouldn't even say drunken master, I'd say quaaluded master, crystal meth mastered, coke mastered, weed mastered. Whatever drunken, coked up fighting style Sachs has, it works. It just works. Sometimes you need to use a deep fryer as a weapon. Sometimes you need to use anything else. Sometimes you just have to be so messed up that you don't even feel the hits that you take. That's Sax, and that's why the instance in Chinatown goes off so well. From there, we go back to Isabella. Isabella is meeting with an old woman who is a mystic because she's trying to get some answers and who's responsible for the death of her boys. And that's where we start to get a little bit more of a clue. The mystic explains to her that 3 of her boys are dead, but Mikey is not among the dead, and Mikey is not with them. So what the hell does that mean? We've already established that Mikey's had some strange connection from the old country and the visions he was having and everything else, and that something wasn't quite right about him when he came back. Now that Mikey's gone, we're going to wonder even more. Is Mikey the kid that the dung beetle was referencing to Blue? Is Mikey some kind of still living, half-dead walker variation? I don't know. It's really interesting. Made even more so by the fact that to confirm our suspicions, Isabella makes her way back to the morgue and realizes, guess what? His morgue cabinet is empty. So you can imagine from the mom's standpoint what her thinking must be at this point. So we've got that. We've got McCarthy making her way to where she needs to go, because at this point she's abandoned Amanda, because, let's be honest, Amanda would be more of a burden than a help. She's just not a police officer at this point. She's done a lot as it is. Now you've got Sax and Happy making their way there, so everybody's converging on the location where Very Bad Santa is. Converging so much that Sax thinks McCarthy is essentially Very Bad Santa and tries to tackle her. McCarthy obviously is thinking, well, who the hell is this tackling me? I'm in this very, very scary, creepy place. So what does she do? She proceeds to then stab Sax in the leg with scissors. Typical, I think, representative of probably what their partnership and relationship was like. But essentially, they realize who each other are. They go searching for the kids, and newsflash, spoiler, from what we got earlier, the kids are gone. The crates are empty. The kids are being mobilized to go wherever the dung beetle ordered Mr. Blue to have the Very Bad Santa take them, because we see a very scary, heartbreaking scene at the end that the kids are on the back of this van, and the Very Bad Santa is just screaming at them to keep singing 12 Days of Christmas, and it's just sad and it's ominous. And it was a hell of a cliffhanger to leave us on, especially a cliffhanger because there's no new episode this week. That's right, you're going to be watching this recap, and then you're going to hopefully maybe watch the X-Files. Marianne's for Bleeding Cool is going to be doing that, so I think that's going to be awesome. I think she's going to be live blogging it, so check that out. But we will be back next week. Next week for the 5th episode of Happy on Syfy. White Sauce, Hot Sauce, it's called. We're going to have some previews and stuff going up before then. But I'd like to thank you guys for joining me for this recap. Got any comments or questions you'd like to ask or add? Make sure you put them down below in the comments or hit me up on social media. Love to get the feedback from you guys. Hope you guys are enjoying these. We've got a lot more for a lot of other shows coming up. But for now, thanks for joining me. I'm going to try and keep this under 13 minutes. Thanks, guys. Take care.